We reject things we don't understand. If I feel I don't understand something, and it's a threat, I then perceive it as a threat.
Yeah.
And then because it's a threat, I then reject it.
Yeah.
And so, which means we just never move. And I think that's the key to open ourselves up to new things, to information, to knowledge, to have that spirit that is teachable, that is inquiring, that is...
Sure.
I've been lost far too long. I can't see, I'm trapped in darkness.
Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday to you. So yesterday, well, I'm recording this on the last day, but today is yesterday for you guys. So yesterday was the end of the 16 days of activism, and I think something that is important for us to understand is it goes beyond the 16 days, okay? And today I have a guest who, much as today we're not going to be talking about gender-based violence or anything related to that, we're going to be talking about mental health as it's Friday. Much as that's the case, much as today is another episode of It's Normal, I believe episode 2. Yes, it should be episode 2 of It's Normal, if not 3. But anyway, today I have a special guest. She's a psychologist. She is one that I have worked with before. She's somebody who I have come to realize she's very passionate about. She's a clinical psychologist, very passionate about psychology. And I think what I love about the time we worked together before is what I realized is that, you know, you can come and just, you know, come address the subject matter or come address what needs to be addressed. But when we were working together last time, I realized that for you, this is something that is really deep down in your heart, you know? And I knew that, you know, when this starts, because I even spoke to you back then, that was what, March even. April.
Yeah.
I spoke to you and I said, I will start this and I would love you to be there and I'm really happy to have you.
And I'm glad that you eventually started.
I eventually did start. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Vuyo Themba, my first professional guest on the show. And yeah, we're going to be talking, today we're going to like basically just sort of ease into the whole topic of mental health, you know. Moving forward, we'll get into like specifics of different illnesses and as I've said, I'm going to have guests coming on to discuss different things, like maybe people who've experienced these things. But I think what I wanted to do is sort of for us to sort of ease into it, you know, discuss different things like maybe the stigmas, the myths. But I think one of the biggest things for me is the vocabulary we use in this field of, you know, mental health, you know. Because one thing I've realized is, that's why I wanted to call this a mental health show. Not a mental illness show, but a mental health show. So I guess I want to start there is, could you please explain to us what exactly is mental health?
I think, Mulimo, when you think of mental health, think of it this way. There's many things that contribute to us being healthy versus having an illness. So when we have an illness, when we're healthy, it doesn't mean we don't have the illness.
Yeah.
Just like we could have the illness and be unhealthy. So when we look at mental health, it's almost like consolidating and bringing all these things that are important for us to function optimally mentally. And it could be many things. Yes, it could be whether we have the illness itself and, you know, how we work with that, what we do with it, how we conceptualize it. On the other hand, the illness is a specific thing that we'll be looking at. So with illness, this is where we say, like you have a flu, versus you are well. So when you are well, it sort of encompasses the generic words mental health versus I am sick and I've got flu. So when we specify it, this is where we use the word illness.
And the key word I guess there is like, we're specifying this because when you have a flu, we're like, okay, temperature, you're coughing, there's these
Yes.
things that you display, and that is what will classify that, okay, you have this specific illness.
Yes.
And in the same manner, with mental health, if you have these specific things, we can say, okay, you have this mental illness, but it's an illness.
Yes.
But then to take care of yourself, to take care of your body so that you don't get a flu or whatever, there's things that you do. We don't say, we don't put it as healthy and ill. It's like, okay, you're moving from healthy, you gradually get to a point where you're now ill. And I think one thing I've sort of realized is, it's like people put them in a two, like they're just two points.
Yeah.
You know, it's either you're mentally healthy or mentally ill. Is that the case? Are they just two like this, or is it like a continuum where you move gradually in between those?
Remember, on the spectrum, if you think about it with anything, because the whole idea, you start thinking it's either or. So that's problematic in itself. But there is a spectrum when we're talking about being mentally well. And there's many other things that contribute to being mentally well. So for instance, I might not have depression, but I might be stressed. And stress is not necessarily a classified illness in terms of, okay, now on the DSM-4 or 5, you know, you are now having stress as an illness. It's a reaction to whatever else is overwhelming you or whatever you're working with. So when we're talking about then mental wellness or mental health, we're talking about even those things that are not necessarily classified as illnesses, but they can lead to ill health, or they can be attended to so that we are well, even if we don't have the illness. And you're right, with flu, we have all these symptoms where we'll say, okay, you've got this, which means you've got flu. And this is where the thing with, I think, the words that we use, because out there, people classify everything that is mentally related to mental illness. So as laymen, we then speak words like, another mental illness. All I have, I'm burnt out, and I don't have a classifiable mental illness necessarily, but I've been overwhelmed by whatever is happening that is now making me not be mentally in a good space.
Yeah, and I think the way you just spoke about that, the whole thing of how we just go out there and we're like, oh, you have, this one has a mental illness, this one has depression, anxiety, this, that. And even if that's the case, already there's that negative connotation to it, which sort of makes it difficult for, you find that even in a situation where maybe you do have a mild, not even a mild case of depression, but a mild case of just a season of sadness, because that could happen, I believe, where maybe for 2-3 days you're just feeling sad, and you may not have been able to pinpoint the reason behind it, but out of this, just because of this, the fact that there's so much negativity around, mental illness, it makes it difficult to even go out and seek help, or even begin to address things within yourself, or even just say, okay, I'm having these feelings of sadness, let me address them. It's almost like you want to move away from them because you never want to associate even yourself with.
Exactly.
And
that happens quite a lot because, and that's like you rightfully say, that's why people will never seek help, because in my mind, if I go and seek help, it means I'm saying I've got this thing that I don't believe I have. So I'm just down today. It's just one of those days where I'm feeling low and I'm not necessarily depressed. It's like that, the wording. People will say, mulemo bipolar. What does that mean? And then when you ask them about it, no, moody. Like 1 minute he's happy, the next minute he's sad.
That's not bipolar.
But that's not bipolar. That's just a normal reaction to whatever is happening, whether it's, kematete or whatever it is. But so it's again those words that we use that we use wrong, and then they dissuade people from actually saying, okay, I think this, I might not be there, but I need to attend to something.
So to sort of play a devil's advocate a bit, because obviously we know there's a lot of people who do not believe, or they don't believe in mental illnesses, So do you think, or what would you say to the statement that we attribute illnesses to things that are normal?
It makes sense because remember, things that are normal are familiar. So which means there's no threat. So if I can say get this because it's normal, yes, it's going to be easier. But if I don't know what is happening, it's difficult for me to then say this is normal. I don't know if it makes sense.
Okay, we maybe get a bit deeper into
So if, for instance, I've never been in a situation where, a classical example, anxiety. So a lot of us will say, oh, no, now I'm addicted to stress. And it's easier because it's normal. It's familiar, it's the languaging that is sort of, oh, okay, it's appropriate. It's okay if you are addicted to the adrenaline.
Especially in this, because, I don't know, like, we have this rush, Joburg vibe,
yes.
you know,
So
you know how they say
it's like
Joburg is rush,
you're in
Cape Town
it.
is relaxed. In Joburg, everybody's like grinding and pushing, so obviously the stress has got to be part of it.
And now if I tell you you've got anxiety, if it's not in your frame of reference, it's not normal.
And then we go
and
back
chances
to...
of you admitting, actually I've got anxiety and it's not normal, because I've got already into that narrative that says I'm addicted to stress.
Which sort of, again, goes to what you mentioned earlier, and then you eventually have burnout. And now, when you have burnout, you're done functioning, you know?
Yes.
And because now we haven't even started dealing with it from the beginning, we now start attaching other things to it that are normal for us, like, okay,
because your brain is trying to make sense of what is happening. So, and your brain is suggestible, remember?
Yeah.
So if there's on the side and I consult and somebody says, oh no, somebody did something to you, then as long as my brain can make sense and connect what I'm physically going through with something that makes sense logically, then we're fine. Whether it's true or not. And so that's why we then start to attribute, then then it's this, then it's that, then it's the ancestral calling, and yet there's a clear distinction between these things.
And I love how you ended that statement in that there's a clear distinction between them. It's not that we're sitting here saying these things don't happen, but there is a distinction.
Yes.
And I guess now my question is, how do we then help people understand that this too is normal? As the name of the show is, it's normal. How do we then help people understand that it's normal? And I'm just thinking about how COVID really brought mental health to light. Like, it really put a spotlight on mental health because the normal that we had taken away from us, and we can't say the whole world, you know, we can't say the whole world.
When
people
we're
all anxious, we're all dealing with feelings and seasons of sadness and worry, concern. People are losing jobs left, right, and center. We cannot say the whole world has been, for those who are not, thank you, I was going to say cursed, but yes, we can't say the whole world is bewitched. You know, basically we can't attach any of those normal excuses to it. How do we take what we've experienced through COVID and help, I guess, like, you know, moving forward?
I think it's like the conversation we once had around, I suppose the responsibility largely lies with us in the profession. Because it's, people don't know what they don't know, right? And we can always say, no, but there's a lot of information, people must go to the internet, it's all there. But if I'm overwhelmed by information, and then there's too many voices going around, and it also becomes difficult to process the information that you're getting. So I would say the first point of call, which is what has been happening now, fortunately, is that people are starting to talk about it and how normal it is. I mean, today I did a session with a group of people in corporate, and you know, these are people who are intelligent, who are clued up, and we think they know these things. And when they then have to admit their own vulnerabilities, that's huge. And it's spaces like those that we need to start taking up. Because we sit in our practices, we sit in the hospitals, we sit with people who already know what's wrong with me. You know, like now I'm sitting with you, you know what your issues are, but I'm not gonna go sit with somebody who probably doesn't even know, or they didn't even invite me to participate in their own well-being. Or so it is difficult, and I think we need to start moving out of our spaces to talk about and normalize and talk about the importance perhaps of mental health and mental well-being more than talking about the illnesses, because maybe we spend a lot of time talking about the illnesses that it scares people.
And we never
and then people, no one wants to feel like, oh my God, I've got now this illness that nobody else likes, nobody else knows about. I am gonna feel some type of way and think, maybe I shouldn't say anything. But if it's normalized, and the importance just of mental well-being is just, you know, that's what we talk about, just like we talk about physical well-being. No one says, oh no, but why are you jogging? Because it's about physical well-being, which includes the food, the jogging, the exercising, a whole lot of other things that we should be doing to take care of our body.
And so moving to a space where we start bringing to light things that are great and important for your mental health, not for mental illnesses alone. So for example, meditating is helpful no matter what.
Whether you've got a mental illness or not, it just helps.
Journaling can help a lot of people, even if it's not for everybody. Journaling, there are so many practices which, just like the word mental health, are sort of just immediately attached to mental illness. But I guess that is part of the show, you know? That is part of what we're doing here, is helping people understand how they can take care of themselves mentally, because our minds are what control the rest of our bodies, and we neglect those a lot. Well, largely perhaps because we don't see them, but I think
not only because we don't see them, but we also don't understand them. Because that's a key, we reject things we don't understand. If I feel I don't understand something and it's a threat, I then perceive it as a threat. And then because it's a threat, I then reject it. And so, which means we just never move. And I think that's the key to open ourselves up to new things, to information, to knowledge, to have that spirit that is teachable, that is inquiring, that is...
Sure. Nah, I really like that part. But let me not get taken away. But obviously, like I said, this is the beginning. We're gonna come back and I'd love to discuss other things. But, you know, like for example, one thing I'd like for us to discuss, not today, but is, you know, how do you as an individual, say who's going through something, how do you bring this, say, to your family? What do you do if your family rejects? Where else can you turn? I mean, we know about SADC that not everybody's willing to pick up the phone and call these helplines. You know, it's not just SADC, but there's a number of helplines. Not everybody's willing to. So just bringing different solutions and ideas of what people can do. These are things that, you know, I'd like us to talk about in future. But again, obviously really highlighting how people can take care of themselves mentally, take care of their mental health, and, you know, live and thrive without without this topic being treated the way it's being treated now. That is really what I'd like to see. But for this week, that is it. And look, part of the creation of this content is for you to share it, especially if you feel it might help shed light. So for example, with me, sometimes I can't explain everything myself. It might take a video. This could be that video that you can use to, you know, start a conversation with someone who is in your life. So to start a conversation with someone in your life. So feel free to share this video. In fact, I encourage that you share this video. But other than that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Thank you for being here,
Thank you.
Ms. Vuyo Themba. And yeah, you know what we always say at the end of videos, comment below. And actually, yeah, I'd like to hear your comments. I think forget all the other things that we normally ask. I'd like to hear your comments and your thoughts on this. And yeah, do subscribe if you're not subscribed already. But really, go ahead and comment, share your thoughts. I want to see what other people think. And again, another thing is, feel free to suggest videos that you would like topics that you'd like to see discussed on this channel, because this is really more about what we do for you than it is about me and what I'm doing here. So if there's a specific professional you'd like me to have on to discuss a specific thing, different topics, I'm open to all of that. But before I continue rambling, thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday.